Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of CasonPoint. I am your host, as always, Jason Cason. Sports are back, man, and it's time that we talk about sports. We got a full doc for you guys today. Going to be about 40 minutes, so stick around. Enjoy the content. Just want to give a quick shout out to my co-host on our other podcast, my cousin, Mr. Cody Meyers, Mr. Mediocre Panda himself. We finished our very first Streamer Spotlight episode with our guy, Facebook Gamer Wink709. You can go check him out at Facebook Gaming /Wink709. Awesome conversation. Not only did we talk video games, but for you sports nuts out there, we actually got some hockey in as well, because Mr. Wink is a pro hockey player, or has played professional hockey. Semi-pro, has gone through the system, actually has a broken hand from hockey because he is a bad A. So, pretty awesome to sit down and have a conversation with him. I feel like the episode was a success. So big shout out to my cousin Cody for making it big time. I'm super happy for him, and I'm happy that the Mashing Joys podcast is taking off. So yeah, if you have a chance to check out the podcast, you can do so. We're going to start putting links to both podcasts in our description, so when you're watching one, you can watch the other. It's going to be on our YouTube channel, and then it's also on anywhere that you get your podcasts: Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes Music, Google Play, all that good stuff. So tune in. Check out the other podcasts. I'm sure that you'll like it. If it's not for you, great. Stick around here. We'll give you some great content. If it is for you, bam, I just gave you 2 podcasts. You are welcome. There's no need to thank me. For those of you that are coming back and have stuck around since the beginning, we love you. We're glad that you're here. I am excited for sports to be back because I get to talk some more. It's been kind of boring not being able to talk about much except for speculations. Now we have real sports to talk about. So, we're going to dive right into it. First things first, we need to talk about where each sport is at as far as dealing with COVID. Okay, so we've talked previously. Obviously, opinions have changed throughout all of this. First, it was basketball's not going to happen. Baseball's definitely not going to happen. Now, baseball's happening and basketball hasn't started yet, but it's going to. NFL might be in question. So where are we at? Where are we at with, let's start with soccer. Okay, MLS is actually going off in Orlando just like the NBA plans to. They're actually doing pretty well. No confirmed cases that has shut anything down, which is great to see. The bubble is actually working in sports, which is promising for hockey and basketball. Speaking of hockey, hockey starts this weekend. I apologize. Hockey starts this weekend, and it is going to be in the 2 hub cities. They decided on Toronto and Edmonton. Edmonton had a slight scare with their facilities, but no problem. Going off without a hitch. The hockey players are saying basically, give us a bed, give us ice, and we're playing, and that's awesome. So hockey is coming back. Couple confirmed cases, but nothing too scary, but hockey has done it right. Okay. Basketball is also going to be doing the bubble thing. They are in Orlando with MLS, as stated before, and they are actually starting this Thursday. So when this episode airs, this episode will air on Wednesday. So tomorrow, as you're watching this, tomorrow or the 30th, we'll have basketball, which is super exciting. It's going to kick off with the Clippers and the Lakers. We will see how that goes. They're going to have a shortened season, which will lead into an expanded playoff, which is kind of the go-to move right now. And hopefully it works. Hopefully we see some good basketball, some good competition. Obviously no fans. It's going to be a little weird, but nothing too crazy. Nothing that's going to make us not watch basketball, which is exciting. Now let's get to baseball. Baseball is happening. 4th game of the season is actually airing right now as I talk. So when you're watching this, you could probably tune over to ESPN or Fox Sports, and there might be a day game for the 5th game of the season. So that's why we are in all red supporting the Angels. Go Halos. And baseball is back. Okay? What I've seen so far is this season is going to go off pretty much how we predicted earlier episodes. I believe it was a couple episodes back. We talked about what teams could potentially win this. We went after the Nationals repeating because of their pitching staff, and it looks to be like pitching is going to play a major factor in this. What we're seeing is actually the opposite of what I was talking about. So when I was picking the Nationals, I was going strictly off of starting pitching. I felt like they had a lot of deep starters that can throw complete games. So you're going to see a lot of guys rotating and not a lot of relievers used. The problem is that's all fine and dandy, and all coaches want to do that. But what's happening is as soon as you go down a couple runs or you give up a walk to load the bases or whatever, managers are panicking and they're going to their bullpen early. I'm pretty sure you're close to about 60% of games are going to the bullpen before the fifth inning, which, as you know, if you're a stat guy, starters don't get the win until after the fifth. So you're going to have a lot of starters that are not going to have complete games. You're going to have a lot of starters that are not going to have wins or losses because they're being pulled before the fifth inning. And you're going to get a lot of starters that can't get out of jams. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. Unfortunately, my Angels are the ones that come to mind. Game 2 of their series, or I apologize, Game 3 of our series against the A's, we had, actually, I apologize, backtracking. Today is actually the 5th game of the season. 6th game will be when you're watching this. The 3rd game of the 4-game series against the A's, Shohei Ohtani took the mound. It was the first time he's taken the mound in over a year. With his injuries, he started the game, and it was not pretty. Okay, he was missing his spots. He was, leaving his breaking ball hanging, so it was either too low for a ball or he was leaving it hanging, and it was an easy base hit for the batters. And he quickly gave up 3 runs, and the bases were loaded. So instead of allowing Ohtani to try to get out of his own jam to save either 1, his start, or 2, his ERA, he was pulled for a reliever, and that reliever gave up a hit, which then scored 2 runs. So instead of Ohtani potentially getting out of a jam to where he only had 3 earned runs on the game, maybe he pitches a couple more innings, is able to kind of bring everything back. He's taken out, a reliever is brought in an uncomfortable situation. He throws a couple pitches, boom, base hit, 2-run score. So now Ohtani is charged with 5 earned runs instead of 3, and now this reliever is put in a position where his first pitch thrown, he has 2 runners in scoring position. Not the greatest situation you want to be a part of. Obviously, relievers, that's what they're for, but very few relievers are put in that situation constantly. And right now, what we're seeing is that's going to happen a lot more. Because it didn't just happen to the Angels in that 4-game series. It happened to a lot of pitchers. Look at the Mets. The Mets were down 9-1 in 4 innings. It happens. And right now, you're going to see that every pitch counts and every inning counts and every out counts. So every manager is going to be on edge. So it's going to be very scary to see how these bullpens are managed, how these starters are managed, how these pitchers see the season going, if it's worth them finishing. So obviously, the biggest question is player safety, aside from the games themselves, and player safety is actually playing a major factor right now. The Miami Marlins season has actually been, or not season, but their next week of games has been canceled. They had 11 players test positive for COVID, and a couple staff members test positive for coronavirus. So because of that, the Marlins have been quarantined, and they have canceled their games. So the Orioles are without a couple games, and then they are going to be playing. Actually, it's just the Orioles, because they were going back to Miami to play the Orioles for a couple games, and then going to Baltimore to play a few more games against the Orioles. So for the rest of the week, they're not playing the Orioles. So it's just the Miami Marlins and the Orioles. The Yankees and the Phillies game was canceled yesterday because all of the tests came back positive in Philly because the Marlins were playing the Phillies. So very scary to have that many people in the same organization test positive. Okay, a couple things can happen here. One, if any of the Phillies players test positive, that's huge because that's showing that the virus can transmit. Even though this is a non-contact sport, the virus is transmitting between team to team. So if you have a team that has multiple cases, it's not going to be safe for them to be playing other teams. So far, tests have come back negative for the Phillies, but as we know with this coronavirus and COVID-19, that it'll pop up at any time. We don't know, how how the symptoms pop up, how quickly they pop up. It could be a couple days until the Phillies feel something, and then they get tested again, and boom, they're positive. So hopes and prayers that that's not the case and we don't run into that, because then we won't have to worry about baseball being canceled. But again, player safety is number one, so if this becomes an issue, then obviously we will have to shut the season down, if not at the least suspend it. And I don't think that that's going to be priority number one, because if that's priority number one, then that means it's going to affect next season. And as we talked about episodes previously, no commissioner of any of the leagues is willing to risk the 2021 season to get 2020 season off, because they understand that this pandemic is hitting. They would rather kaput the season and not affect another season rather than affecting multiple seasons. So hopefully baseball can get it together. The Marlins canceling for the next week. You're playing 60 games in 66 days. Well, now the Marlins are missing 8 days. They're missing 8 of those 66. How are they going to make up those games? That means they can't have a break for the rest of the season, or if they have a break, that means multiple series will have to be doubleheaders. Are the players going to agree to that? Probably not. That's probably not something that you want to do. You don't want to play a 3-game series against the Phillies, fly home to Miami, and have to play 4 games against the Orioles, and then no break, fly to Baltimore and play 4 more games against the Orioles in 2 days, and then now you're caught up, but now you don't get a break after playing 9 games, and now you have to fly back to wherever you're going to then play another 3-game series with no rest. No one wants to do that. So it's going to be very tough to make up for this. And look, here's the problem. The Miami Marlins are actually winning games. So if the Marlins come out and they finish less, they don't play 60 games like everyone else, but they have a better win percentage, what happens if they're, a game ahead of the next team, but they still have to play 6 games? What if they were to lose 3 of those games? Well, now they're out of the playoffs. So it's not fair to the teams that are playing the full 60, that had a full spectrum. So are the Miami Marlins completely out of it? Those are the questions that we're going to have answered. And obviously, with Rob Manfred being at the head of the MLB, we're probably not going to get those answers because he's a stooge. A big stooge. So, having said that, most of the conversation about baseball is positive, okay? We've only missed a couple games. Obviously, the season just started. But for the most part, baseball's back. And the game is back. It's a little bit different. Obviously, no fans is very weird, and the style of play is different. But you still got the crack of the bat. You still got good baseball playing. You're gonna have roughly anywhere from 12 to 10 to 12 games a day, and sometimes you'll have a full slate of 15, just not this week, but you're going to have 10 to 12 games a day, and at least 3 to 5 of those games are going to be great games, and you're going to have a couple good games, and you're going to have a couple bad games. And depending on who you root for, you might think it's a great game, but it's a bad game to the other team. But for the most part, you're going to see good baseball. And everyone knows this is a sprint. Everyone's going to bring their A game. Everyone's going to bring, the pull out the tricks that they have. The one thing that we might not see is the retaliation to the Astros. We talked about this a lot last year, or not last year, this year, but before the season started, about the Astros cheating, how the retaliation was going to go, especially with teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees. Well, the Astros did play the Mariners, and it wasn't, I believe, only 3 batters were hit in the first 3 or 4 game series. So it's nothing that's like, oh god, that's bad. They are playing the Dodgers. So this week they do have a series against the Dodgers. You might see a little more, but every pitch counts. Every out counts. So not a lot of teams are going to be willing to hold a grudge when it's a sprint to the finish. So, but talking about baseball, that's going to lead us into a bring back of one of our segments. And here we have PMS. Roll it.
This is PMS.
Praise.
Mock.
Shred.
It's time to praise, mock, and shred.
Alright guys, you know how this game works, and if you don't, I'll quickly explain it. So this is PMS. We're going to praise, mock, and shred somebody. It might get heated. It might not get heated. It's probably going to get heated. So first, we're going to start with praising, okay? This is a positive show, or we like it to be a positive show. So who are we going to praise? we are going to praise the NHL and Commissioner Gary Bettman. Out of all these leagues, everything starting, the NHL ran into the second most curveballs. Okay, baseball you'd probably say is the first because they wanted to stay in their local markets due to players wanting to, stay at home. They don't want to be away from their families for 5 months. And obviously TV money is a big deal. Radio money is a big deal. So hockey was probably dealt the second worst hand. Having the teams that they have and the way hockey is played, it's not like basketball where you can be in one bubble. You have to split it up. So they had Toronto and Columbus locked in, and Columbus backed out. Then they had Toronto and Vegas. Vegas backed out. Then they had Columbus and Florida. Well, both of those backed out. So then they found Toronto and Edmonton, finally. But no training facilities. They weren't doing it like basketball where they were going into this bubble and training, playing some preseason games, and then hitting the ground running because they're not doing a season. They are doing a COVID Cup. So it is literally a Stanley Cup style series with the teams that have been invited. Why I'm praising the NHL is because they did training camps and training facilities in their local areas. Okay, players were allowed if they lived in, let's say Ovechkin lived in Pittsburgh, which he doesn't, but let's say he did. He was allowed to go and schedule time at the Penguins practice facility to work out and get some shots in, get some ice time to keep fresh. Okay, during this time, they had less than 5 positive cases, which means that the NHL set guidelines, safety guidelines throughout these cities where these training facilities were, and they were holding teams and players accountable. Because to have all these players that were living their regular life, they were not being quarantined, they are at home or out and about, depending on the state's regulations, going into these facilities and practicing, going back home and yada, 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 and to only have 5 confirmed cases means that the NHL was locking them down and doing a great job keeping them safe while they're in the facilities. Kudos. Now, not only did they set up the 2 hub cities with all of the issues going on, but they were able to set them both in Canada, a country that has extreme regulations on with their COVID policies to where when players arrive in Canada, they have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So they were able to not only do their training, but then allow players to get to Canada to do their quarantine to where now they have 0 confirmed cases and their cup is going to go off without a hitch. That's exactly what we want. As a sports fan, that's what we want. As someone that covers sports, that's what I want. Because not only am I getting sports, but I'm getting it safely. I'm getting it to where players aren't going to have any issues. Players aren't going to be, causing problems with their families if they bring something home with them. Because they're in a bubble. They're safe. Nothing's going to happen. Now, there have been questions with this bubble scenario because if someone were to get it because they're in close quarters, it'll spread rapidly. There's been actually a couple, Dr. Roll, who used to be an NFL player, has come on some shows and stated that with the NBA and with the NHL right now, even though cases are not showing us anything that's alarming, this is probably the most dangerous way to do it is in a bubble because it's so close. But it's the easiest way to regulate it, and if you stay on top of it, you're going to be fine. So kudos to the NHL. I really hope that the season kicks off and we get some great hockey. It'd be awesome because we haven't had hockey in a while, and to have multiple Game 7s happening would be amazing. So good job, hockey. Great job, Gary Bettman. Right now, you are in the lead for top commissioner of all sports, surpassing Mr. Silver and definitely Mr. Goodell. And Mr. I'm not even going to state your name because you don't even deserve to be in the conversation because you're a stooge. Because it's not a piece of metal, it's a championship trophy. Sorry. We're not going to talk. He is not in. He's not our M or our S in this PMS. We're praising Mr. Gary Bettman, and that is that. Now for mock. Who are we going to mock? I'll tell you who we're going to mock. We are going to mock Mr. Lou Williams. Mr. Lou Williams apparently was so hungry that he wanted to go get some hot wings, leave the bubble, go get some hot wings, because Magic City's hot wings are amazing, apparently, and he has hot wings that are named after him. They're like lemon pepper barbecue or something, which actually sounds really good, but nonetheless, he leaves the bubble just to go have some wings, and now he's being quarantined for 10 days. Will miss the Clippers-Lakers starter. Who knows if he's going to miss any games after that. Plus, not only is he being quarantined, but now he's missing out on 10 days of practice, on game time, strategy, all that. So he might not be game time ready by the time his 10 days are up. But you go to a strip club for wings, gentlemen's club for wings when you're in a bubble? Come on, man. Like, you can't do that. You got room service. You have restaurants on site. Just order some wings from there, man. You don't have to go and get Magic City wings. Hell, DoorDash them. Pay a dude to bring it to the hotel. Who cares? Why do you have to go there and sit and eat them? You weren't just there for the wings, first of all. And second of all, you have no reason to leave the bubble that early. I get if you're going to have cabin fever. I get it. If you're claustrophobic or whatever and you just can't take it, that's fine. But when you've barely been there, come on, dude, how do we expect you to finish this tournament? The Clippers are a favorite. You can't be doing this, man. You got to stay in the bubble. I understand that you have a personal life and you know, you're human and you want things and you want to go do things and you're a professional athlete and you make a ton of money. Why are you being locked down in a bubble? Well, if that was the case, don't play. Don't go into the bubble if that's the case. You're affecting everyone else. You're affecting your teammates. You're affecting the other players that are there. You players want to talk about player safety and you want to be safe and you don't think the league's looking out for you. But here you are. The league gives you a bubble. They give you all the amenities you need, a player's lounge, a barbershop, restaurants and fishing and golfing and all of it. And you decide to leave to go get some wings. That's not safe. Especially going to a gentleman's club where there's multiple people there, and they're eating, which means they're not wearing masks. And you're there. And if you get something, whether you're safe or not, the person that's there with you might not be safe. Now you get it and you bring it back into the bubble. This is exactly what Dr. Roll was talking about. So, Mr. Lou Williams, 1, try to keep it in your pants. 2, I know they're great wings. Order B-dubs or something. It'll tie you over for a little bit, I promise. And you're on a team that's projected to go very far in this tournament. Don't blow it. So I'm mocking Lou Williams. Now for the man of the hour, our shred of the episode, Dr. Fauci. Tony Fauci, Mr. Wear a Mask, Screw Sports, Be Safe guy, decided to put all that behind him and throw out the first pitch. Yeah, that's right. Mr. Sports do not need to happen right now. Sports are the last thing that we need in this world. Wear a mask. Yeah, he didn't care when he was given the spotlight pitching in the Yankees Nationals opener for the MLB season, which, by the way, 50 Cent threw it better. And if you haven't watched 50 Cent's throw, it didn't even make it to the batter's box. Now, Dr. Fauci is coming out saying, oh, my arm was sore. That's why I couldn't throw it. Have you not thrown a baseball in your life? For God's sakes, Fauci, lob it in if you have to. Tries to hum it in there and whips it left. Almost takes out a cameraman. Probably has his COVID hands all over it, hitting the cameraman in the mouth. Have you not thrown a baseball before? For the love of God, Fauci, let's go, man. Then, not to mention Mr. Wear a Mask at all times, unmasked, sitting in the stands, sitting next to what looks like to be his wife and his dad or brother or whatever, and dad's wearing a mask, but wife and Fauci aren't. So, wear a mask at all times, be safe. Okay, how about you drink what you're pouring, bud? It's ridiculous. And you ruined baseball, man. You can't throw out the first pitch of the season and throw a dunker like that. What kind of omen are you trying to set for the season? It's ridiculous. Now, if you haven't seen the video, I recommend watching because it's actually quite funny. But yeah, a grown man can't throw a baseball across a plate. Now look, I get it. There are a lot of people that throw out first pitches of games and they know they can't make it there, so they step away from the rubber. Okay, or they'll step onto the grass and they'll throw like a nice little lobber to the catcher. That's fine, man. That works. It's the first pitch. It's not like you have to be a pitcher that throws 95, throw it across the plate. There's even pitchers that are in their 50s that come back like Nolan Ryan or Oral Hershiser that come out and they throw the first pitch and they zing it in there. It's not as fast as they used to throw it, but they still zing it in there. But who cares? No one's looking for you to strike someone out. You're throwing to a pitcher or a catcher or a first baseman of the team just so you can get a good shake of the hand, share the ball, see you later. Thanks for, bringing out the first pitch. We appreciate you. You don't need to hum it in there. But Mr. Fauci, wind up and all, thunk, way left. Come on, Fauci. Come on, bud. You got a lot of work to do with that arm. Go ice it up. Maybe we'll give you a shot next year. Hopefully not. That, ladies and gentlemen, has been PMS. All right, guys. So, before I get you guys out of here, because we're creeping up on the time that I wanted to keep it at, I wanted to do an updated bracket. Okay? We're going to talk a little bit about where I think teams are going to sit with the new playoff format. So, the last time we talked, I was assuming that the playoff format would be similar to what it's been in the past. Okay, your top 3 AL or your top of the AL Central, top of the AL West, top of the AL East will play the 2 wild cards. Okay, the 2 wild cards play. The winner plays the number 1 seed. 2 and 3 play each other. Well, the players came to an agreement with the league to expand the playoffs. So, in the year 2020, which we're in right now, this baseball season will conclude with a 16-team playoff, which is 6 teams more than what we had last year. So how it's going to work is the top 2 teams in each division are going to make the playoffs with 2 wild cards, which they will take the next 2 best records in each league. So for instance, let's say for easy, off the top, you have Yankees, Red Sox, White Sox, Indians, A's, Astros, okay? Those are your 2 teams for each division. Well, after those guys are wiped out, the top 2 teams left in that league would go. So if it was the Royals and the Angels, they would go. It doesn't matter on who ranks better in the division. It will strictly be the league record. So the American League record, the NL League record, top to bottom, okay? So, and as we know, a lot of these games are going to be played regionally. So the AL West will play the NL West, and the AL West will play the AL West. Instead of the AL West playing the AL West, the AL Central, and the NL Central, they're playing strictly the West. So AL and NL West, AL and NL Central, AL East, NL East. So you're going to have a lot of interleague, which is why they made the DH consistent between the leagues. So NL will have the DH as well. Makes it a little easier. So I'm going to go down who I think is going to win each division, who's going to finish in second, and who our 2 wild cards will be, leading to our new updated World Series champion based off of the new parameters. So I didn't want to stray away a bunch from our previous bracket because I feel like from what I've seen, pitching is still going to be a major factor. So I don't want it to be a huge revamp because I still think there is a bottom barrel of the league and a top barrel of the league, and then that middle is where it's going to get gray with pitching. Okay, so your West, the AL West and the NL West. AL West, I have the Astros and the A's taking the AL West, with the Astros taking the number 1 spot. NL West, I have the Dodgers and the Rockies taking the top 2 spots, with the Dodgers taking the number 1 spot. In the AL Central and the NL Central, AL Central, I have the White Sox and the Indians, with the Indians taking the number 1 spot. And then I have the Cardinals and the Cubs, okay, with the Cardinals taking the number 1 spot. In the East, I have the Yankees and I have the Rays, with the Yankees taking the number 1 spot, and the Nationals and the Braves, with the Nationals taking the number 1 spot. Okay, now our 2 wild cards for each league, I have the Twins and the Angels taking the wild card spots, and then I have the Brewers and the Phillies taking the NL wild card spots. So, as this would play out, okay, you're going to have your 8 teams on each side, so your wild cards are going to be your 7 and your 8 seed, which means your 1 seed is going to play your 8 and your 2 seed is going to play your 7. There has been speculation that the 1 through the 3 seed would play the 6, 7, and 8 based on demographic, so it's less travel. That could play a factor if coronavirus cases kind of wave around. So for instance, in this case, you would have the Astros playing the Twins. Well, if the Angels were in the 7 spot, the Astros would play the Angels because they're in the same division. So it's less travel. That's how that would work. That's how they're going to possibly work this out. So for this bracket's sake, we're just going to go 1 through 8. Okay, 1 plays 8, 2 plays 7, 3 plays 6, so on and so forth. Okay, so I have in my brackets. Okay, so I'm going to have the Astros versus the Twins. I have the Astros moving on. In the 2 game, the number 2 seed, I have the A's playing the Angels with the Angels moving on. The 3 and the 4, or the 3 playing the 6 seed, I have I apologize. I have the Yankees playing the Angels with the Yankees moving on. I have the A's versus the Indians with the Indians moving on, and then I have the Rays and the White Sox with the Rays moving on. Okay, so we have the Astros, the Rays, the Yankees, and the Indians. Those are the 4 teams moving on. Okay. On the other side, I have the Dodgers playing the Nationals with the Nationals moving on. Okay, Dodgers are out. I have the Braves playing the Cubs. Okay, and I have the Braves moving on. I have the Brewers playing. I apologize. I'm going too fast. I have the Dodgers. Playing the Phillies, and the Dodgers moving on. I have the Rockies playing the Nationals moving on. I have the Braves playing the Cards moving on. Cubs playing the Phillies, Cubs moving on. Okay, so we have the Cubs, the Braves, the Nationals, and the Dodgers. Cubs, Braves, Nationals, Dodgers. Those are the 4 teams. Cubs, Braves, Nationals, Dodgers. I have the Nationals and the Dodgers playing with the Nationals moving on, and the Cubs and the Braves with the Braves moving on. So I have the Braves and the Nationals in the NL side. The AL side, I have the Astros and the Indians. Or Yankees and Indians. Yankees, Indians, and the Braves, Nationals. I have the Yankees beating the Indians, and I have the Braves beating the Nationals. So we have Braves and the Yankees. Okay. Now, we've talked about pitching. Both teams have pretty good pitching. Braves have a better bullpen. Yankees have a better starting rotation. By what I'm seeing so far, bullpen is going to matter more than starting rotation. However, the Yankees can put points up early, but so can the Braves. I'm actually going to take the Braves in 7. I think youth is going to be a big factor as far as teams staying healthy and players being able to handle the stress and everything that is involved with COVID. I actually wouldn't be surprised if the season ends in a bubble. I wouldn't be surprised if they do a playoff format in the bubble. NL goes to Florida, AL goes to Arizona. I think it's a possibility. Nothing has been said or stated, but I believe that could be a possibility. Anyways, that is my idea. I believe the Braves will actually win it. I did have the Nationals before. I think the Nationals will still make it deep, but I like the Braves in this case. I'm going with the Braves. All right. I thank you guys very much for listening. I appreciate you guys. Another episode in the books. Next week, we are going to be talking about how basketball is going and how hockey is going. So exciting. I can't wait. And then we're going to start talking about the future. What's coming next? How's COVID affecting sports? So stay tuned. Stick around with us. Follow us on social media. Make sure that when you're watching this YouTube video, you click that bell. Subscribe. Get notifications. You'll find out when we go live, if we go live, and you'll find out when the episodes are uploaded and ready to go. We love you guys. We appreciate you. And as always, may the sports be with you.